You're listening to the Visibly Fit podcast. Hey, I'm your host, Wendie Pett, and every week I'll give you holistic, practical solutions for everyday issues related to nutrition, healing, functional fitness, and behavior modifications. As a naturopath, fitness expert, and wellness coach for over 20 years, my goal is to empower you to reach for greater health and to rise up to your next level of living in mind, body, and spirit. You were created with greatness in mind. It's time to own it. Are you with me? Then let's dive in. Hello and welcome to Visibly Fit. I'm your host, Wendie Pett, and I am so excited about today's show. First of all, I need to ask you this. Have you ever heard the phrase, talent will get you noticed, but consistency will get you paid? Well, if you haven't, our guest has heard it time and time again by his father, actually. And it's been a big message in his life. And he is just an extraordinary human being. He's an extraordinary man. And he has just a passion about really understanding and owning consistency and understanding how to optimize consistency for maximum recovery. And he has just been a performance coach for years and years. He was a performance coach for 3 different NHL teams and 5-year NCAA performance coach he was. He's got undergrad in exercise science and nutrition, an MS in human biology and performance science. He's a postgraduate in functional medicine and HRV recovery studies. If you don't know what HRV is, you're going to learn. And he has 8 published articles in medical journals. And he has a lot more I could tell, but I'm going to let him share about himself. But it's an exciting topic because I think people are in the space of really trying to figure out, how do I gain more energy? And I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And what do I do? What's the solution? Well, Justin Roethlingshoefer. See, I said, am I going to butcher that? And I actually got it right when I mentioned it to him. He's like, no, you got it. And now I just butchered it. Justin Roethlingshoefer is on today. So Justin, welcome to Visibly Fit. How are you?
I'm outstanding, Wendie. How are you?
Oh, good. See, I had it the first time when we were on a call and you're like, yep, that's easy. And then I just botched it. So anyway.
Oh, you had it. You nailed it.
Thank you so much for being on. I'm so excited to have you. I've known you for several months now. Todd and I both have spent some quality time with you and your lovely new bride, Elise. And we are just, just honored to know you both because you're such special human beings, but you're so passionate about health, and someone like myself that's equally as passionate. I love that. Like, I get just so energized about someone else that really wants to help the betterment of people's health and well-being so they can live a better quality life. And so you didn't always live a very healthy lifestyle. And so I kind of want to start in the beginning about Justin. Like tell us a little bit about young Justin and how you have evolved to where you are today.
Well, I thank you for that intro, and it's very humbling because it's super. The feelings reciprocated with you and Todd, and it's been so great to just be in your guys' environments and just exist in each other's ecosystem. So I can't say how awesome it's been getting to know you, and I'm excited to be here on the platform that you share with so many people. So with that being said, yes, as a youngster, growing up playing hockey in Canada, obviously there's this pressure to play hockey, and at the time, I mean, I didn't feel like it was pressure. It was something I just loved. It was I knew that I wanted to be at the NHL level. I knew that I wanted to be an NHL player. That was my dream. That was my goal. You're sitting in grade 3, and people are like, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" I'm going to be a hockey player. That was it. That was the answer. And I was blessed to have a little bit of talent. And at 13, was playing with 16-year-olds, and it was the first time I really didn't stand out. That comes back to that quote that you said. And I got back in the car and my dad said to me, "Son, talent will get you noticed, but consistency will get you paid." And it was a major mind shift for me in terms of interesting, I guess. How do I become the most consistent version of myself? That's what I'm after. That's what I'm seeking. And that led me down a multitude of different roads. And
And how old
me
were
now
you at
knowing,
that time?
I was 13.
You were 13. Yeah.
Yeah, 13. And so really kind of that whole mindset shift, me now looking back at myself, I know that I have very addictive personality, very obsessive over everything. And so it's no surprise that 13-year-old Justin started to wear heart rate monitors and sleep with different brain sensors and read medical journals and put every other wearable piece of technology that was functional back in 1999 to figure out how this all worked. And so knowing that, I I was also at the time dealing with, like, I grew up as a fat kid, as the guy that would put the effort in, but was made fun of, was teased, and so subconsciously having this insecurity about me, this level of vulnerability when it came to what I looked like, and as I started to engage in these habits, engage in these things, from eating better, sleeping better, working out the proper way, recovering the proper way, starting to look at these numbers and metrics, I actually transformed my body pretty quickly in the span of about 8 months. Where I'll never forget, I showed up for tryouts as a 14-year-old, and people were like, "Oh my God, Justin, I don't recognize you. Like, you look fantastic." And it was like, okay, like for the first time, I'm getting like noticed and recognized, and I felt great. And I very quickly went the opposite direction, where this fear of going back to what I was, this fear of um,
Being bullied,
having
right?
exactly this
Yeah.
fear of being called out for looking differently, and being overweight and not having this certain level of fitness about me and being able to perform at certain levels. I became anorexic, and it was to a point where I would limit what I would eat, uh, limit what or my exercise time. It became where I would like run through hallways at school. I would run up and down the stairs at home. It's called
You were
exercise bulimia.
obsessive. Yeah, right. Exactly.
And it became to this point where, like, my body, I still remember going back to it, where I'd take cold showers before I went to bed. I would sleep without a sheet. I would um, anything that would increase calorical expenditure. I would do push-ups and sit-ups every time I ate. I would
You were obsessed.
it was to the umpteenth like degree. And
Yeah.
I really, like, you become embarrassed about it a little bit, because you're like, I know I'm different, I know this is weird, and nobody else is like this. And so you start to take your self-conscious thoughts from being made fun of to self-conscious thoughts of, now, like, I am weird. Like, what am I doing? This is so awkward. To now people making fun of you because you run in the halls, or because you're always in the gym, or and everybody else can see it, but you can't.
Wow.
That, like, you have a disease. There's something wrong, and, like, how can we help? But don't know how to, because it's uncomfortable. Specifically because I was male,
Yeah.
and and you kind of get put out on an island a little bit.
I'm so glad that we're talking about this, Justin, because a lot of people don't realize that men go through body dysmorphia and exercise bulimia and anorexia and all these different things. And it's actually pretty common. But we just tend to think that females deal with this. And so getting to the core and the root of what that was all about, can you talk a little bit about that discovery of like, oh wow, a kind of a wake up call of why you're wired the way that you are and how you've turned it into a positive spin and how you're able to help others because of it. Let's talk about when moment was where you were able to love yourself for who you are, but you were able to find a balance with it all.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. One is I grew up in a Christian home. My parents are just outstanding, and I get emotional talking about this, but um, my my dad during that time, obviously, as parents, you don't know what to do. Like
Right. I
you
know.
see
I
you
mess
see
up
your
all the
son,
time.
you see your son is suffering and kind of going through this, and you coddle them, you try to give them all the resources from like the different doctors, the different um, resources to help the coaches, the mentors, and we don't want to hear any of it at the time
Yeah.
because we're right, and there's obviously a deeper seated fear existing there. Um, they would get angry, they would threaten, but nothing works. Like they didn't know, and so they went back to what they only knew, which was to show up out of love. And my dad, during this season of my life, um, fortunately enough, he was able to work from home. He left the office. He didn't go to the office um, for almost a year and a half, and would be up with me in the morning, making me food that I liked, making my lunch to go to
Wow.
school, to make sure that I ate, to he was a guy that showed up to everything, like
Mm.
every practice, every game, every appointment with my mom. Like it was like just the amount of support and love that was there was, I think it
It's
began
beautiful.
to it began to wear on me and chip away and go like, what are you doing, man? Like look at the love they're pouring onto you, and you're just like spitting on it. And because you knew what you were doing wasn't right, and but didn't know how to shake that fear. And at the same time, I went to a hockey academy, and by through this entire thing, like here's what was amazing is a lot of times when people are going through this, they're so tired, so fatigued, their performance goes down, they start skipping out on school, all these things. Well, I was a straight A student. I was playing hockey at the highest level. I was succeeding. I was excelling. Like there was nothing for me,
No indicators that
uh,
showed that.
or
Yeah.
or even that like there was like you know what, I want to play hockey. Like I better change this because I'm not getting the results I want. I'm getting every result I could ever want, and I'm still continuing down this road. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm not changing anything because I must be right, even though I'm exhausted, tired, and hate my life every single day.
Mm.
And I showed up at the hockey academy, and it was a coach that I had back when I was 12. Um, and he showed up, and he goes like, "Oh my God, like, are you okay?" It was his question, and I was like, "Yeah." I just continued walking, and it stuck with me. And he called my parents after, and he goes like, "Is Justin okay?" And so that actually became one of my mentors. His name's Carl, and he became one of my mentors. And one of like that was a big shift in me was understanding that there was a different way in which I could do things, a different way in which I could succeed. And he actually now, quite frankly, we hired him. He works for Own It, and it's kind of ironic how it comes full circle. But it's amazing, like that moment of like, okay, I need to now shift and change, but using that obsession for health, that obsession for um, understanding the body in a healthy way rather than for the state of perfection. And it ultimately drove my educational career, my professional career, and ultimately to where I am today.
Yeah, I love that. And the beautiful thing is that nothing is wasted, Justin. I mean, even though it was a painful time, it's not wasted because you have empathy for those that are in that similar situation, whether they're top athletes or people that are just trying to get their health back, right? Or get their health period. Like maybe they've never had and experienced good health. So you can you can connect with them on that level. But you all those years of putting data into place and all that obsessive time with that is for our benefit. So we appreciate all that you went through. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts, because you are definitely changing lives through Own It and with the Whoop Band and your partnership there. And people are starting to understand that, wow, okay. And especially, and I'll speak for myself here too, as I've been doing this with you guys. I'm noticing, whoa, I'm a high achiever as well. And I need to like stop and, just take a bath or read a book or, be a little more, get the parasympathetic system a little, downgraded a little bit because I'm
Give
always
it a little
jacked up.
TLC.
Yeah, give a
Give
little
it a little
TLC
TLC.
and give
That's
myself
right.
permission, right, to do a little bit
Yeah.
more of it. So you've helped me out a lot with that already. But I want to talk, and thank you for sharing a little bit about your story, because I think people don't realize, because you're an athlete and you look good. And when people see that you've gone from this particular body type and you've transformed to this, they think, oh, look, he's doing good, right? And you, like you said, you had everything checked and T's crossed, I's dotted, but you were still in pain on the inside. So anyway, you're speaking to somebody today, and you're gonna let them know that there's hope, right? And that's what this is all about, that there's hope. But I want to talk a little bit about the obsessive data that you collected, because this has been really for good. And you have really discovered so much about heart rate variability. And a lot of people are not familiar with HRV and why it even matters. Do we want to just kind of tap into that for just a moment?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, as I went through this experience, obviously, we've all, at this point, I'm 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. I don't know what any of this is in terms of heart rate variability, but thinking back to it, I knew exactly what I was looking at, right? We weren't studying heart rate variability in 1999. And knowing that when I would wake up in the morning, I would be exhausted. I'd have to peel me out of the bed, and then I'd feel certain levels of anxiety or certain heat rushes as I was working throughout the day. And ultimately, what we start to learn is that your parasympathetic, being that really rest and digest nervous system, like the relaxed state, was being overcompensated by your sympathetic state, which is that chronic stress overload state, where things like epinephrine, norepinephrine, adrenaline are really cortisol are at their peaks. And when we run into this imbalance, I guess you say, between sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, it starts to change our body hormonally. And when it changes our body hormonally, certain systems in the body don't work. Circadian rhythms are off, hormone production are off, growth hormone are off. Like, and we start to become very catabolic. We start to break down from the inside out, and that's where chronic disease happens. That's where sleep apnea and sleep disorders come from, and mental disorders, mental health issues. That's where everything stems from. And so, even as I went through my educational career and started to be able to put all these pieces together, I from everything I was learning, I was like, there's more to this. It's not X's and O's. It's all different. And so, like, what I call myself today is really, I'm technique certain, but tactic agnostic. And what this means is, it's like, I only use techniques that are proven and rooted in science, but I take the approach that it's based on the unique needs of the individual and the organizations that we work with, because we know that each one of us are different and that we need different information in order to help drive certain changes.
Right,
And
based on your environment or
completely,
you do for a
completely.
living or whatever. Yeah, the stresses you're under.
And so, fast forward to 2008, 2009, when I first started looking at heart rate variability, as scientific definition, it's the time gaps or the time variance between heartbeats. And we would think if your heart beats at 60 beats per minute, it's beating at 1 beat per second, but it's actually not true. And there's a variation in time between those beats. And the higher the variability, the more relaxed we are, the more parasympathetic we are. Thus, the more rigid, so maybe 500 milliseconds, 500 milliseconds, 500 milliseconds, so no variability, the more stressed we are, the more stress state we are. And thus, we now, for the first time, have a metric, heart rate variability, telling us how our body is adapting to the stress and strain in which we're placing on it. And the crazy part is that our body doesn't know the difference between mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional stress.
Right.
And when we now start to lean into that, and I look back at my 13, 14, 15-year-old self, and it's like, you were training your face off. You weren't eating. You weren't sleeping well. You were stressed out at school. You had all this going on at home. It's no wonder you were stressed in every single one of these categories, because you had no clue who you were or what you were doing. And this is ultimately where I found you. And we find ourselves in this space on a regular everyday basis, because we don't have a system, we don't have a process, don't have anything to go off of and understand how we're doing internally and inside. And the moment that we can understand how our body is adapting to stress and strain, and then giving us power, empowering us to understand what lever system to pull on to make sure that we are recovering properly. I mean, it's an amazing tool, an amazing gift that really puts us in a very exciting and powerful position as human beings to know what I can do to create a change in my personal environment that is going to allow me to show up with greater capacity, recover better, be more powerful. And when we do that, we can truly engage and provide the value and the service that we want to.
I love that too, Justin, because man, just understanding the science behind it and being able to pinpoint for you as an individual what works, what doesn't, and to make it your own. And you always talk about own your different with Own It, because everyone does have a different. But I think it is empowering, especially as so many stresses are kind of put on us today, to understand how do we deflect those stresses. So, you have the power, turn off the television, turn off social media, whatever it is. So it's just like hoping, creating awareness around that. But I think the more that we are educated too, the more that those with, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old children or even younger, as adults, we're going to be able to help them grow up and understand their body and their needs better too, right? And I think that that's really a big need right now, especially with the mental health issues going on.
It's an amazing point, because there's so often when we just don't know what to do and we don't know what conversations to have. It's so easy as an outsider looking in to say, hey, you need to change this, or hey, you need to do this. But we all know that it creates it takes buy-in. And what does buy-in make? It means that we have to own that. We have to say, you know what? Yeah, I do understand that. I do really believe that. And what data does, or what, I guess, quantifiable data for that matter, is it brings data drives conversation.
Yeah.
And conversation can drive decisions, and decisions can lead to action. And if we don't have those, then it's just like throwing darts in the dark. And it's a he said, she said type of battle. It could be between an athlete and a coach. It could be between a husband and a wife. It could be between
or
a
just
son
in
and a
your own
daughter.
head, one
Could be with
conversation to the other.
Exactly. But all of a sudden, when you have something to go off of, something to help you grab something that is so vast, and our bodies are amazing things. Like they are resilient. Like I go back to this, like you're talking about a guy who, and I mean, I didn't even give these facts, but I went from 168 pounds to 98, from 14 to 15.
Oh my
And
word.
And I was under 100 pounds. I was the size of my wife.
Wow. Right. She's a tiny little thing.
And at this point, like I'm playing AAA hockey with 16, 17, 18-year-olds who are grown men at some point, weighing in at 200 pounds at 6'3", and I'm a 5'8", 98-pound boy.
Wow.
And I got to a point where my liver was shutting down and my kidneys weren't producing things right. And so literally shutting down from the inside out. My hands were orange because I would eat so many carrots and like all of these types of things that stand out, and your body's going like, this isn't right, but yet I'm able to right the ship, literally killing myself, but right the ship and be healthy, fully functioning, optimized, really, if you will, today. And just our body's ability to do that is incredible. But what it takes is knowing what action steps to take. And I think that's what I continually come back to is like, as humans, we adapt and transform to the degree that we're healthy. And we will only ever be able to perform to the level that we're constrained. And what I mean by that is that if longevity or performance is ultimately our goal, which I think for most people it would be, health has to be the foundation.
Absolutely.
And it's not just any type of health, it's personalized health. What does it mean for me?
Right.
Because I maybe shouldn't be supplementing this, or maybe I shouldn't be doing this form of exercise, or maybe I shouldn't be exposed to this type of stressor today. And that's why I say where I'm like technique certain, but tactic agnostic. It's like I love every tactic out there. I love intermittent fasting. I love sauna. I love heat therapy. I love cold therapy. I love it. Every diet is
but that can be a full-time job itself. I mean, you have to do what works for you, right?
But at the same time, when I'm saying I love all those things, I don't love all of them all the time.
Right.
For everybody. There's a time and a place in which certain things are going to help you, and there's certain things where they're going to not help you, and they're going to actually pull you further away from where you're trying to go. And if we have a metric or a guidance factor or an understanding of when we need to apply it, that's when everything changes. And it's so empowering to not just have now being told what to think, but being taught how to think. And it's an amazing, amazing process that is really empowering.
No, that's so good. And whether you're an athlete that's trying to get a handle on your health and make sure it's balanced, or someone who hasn't really, fully dove into their health yet, it all takes that what you just said. It's the name of your company. You have to own it. You have to step up and say, okay, wait a minute, something is off here. Whether I'm obsessed or I'm not doing anything, I have to figure out why. And is it important to me to live a healthy lifestyle? So that's a choice, right? So what would you say to somebody who is not an athlete and they're they've been overweight all their life, just like when you were a younger Justin, and they just don't know what it even feels like to be healthy? What would you say to them as their first thing that they should do?
Yeah, I love that question. And to be honest with you, we just started with a company. We've got about 500,000 employees, and when we were going through this negotiation, they asked us another question. They said, well, what do you do with the people that like just this health thing isn't for them? And I said, well, I asked the question back. I said, well, why would the health thing not be for them? And in our society, we have made health fitness. And fitness is not health.
It's one component.
It is one pillar of what we talk about.
Right.
It's nutrition, it's hydration, it's sleep, it's mindset, it's environment, it's self-care, it's immune function. And lastly, it's fitness.
Right.
Or movement or exercise or whatever you want to call it. And when I said that, you could literally see a light bulb go off in their mind and be like, oh my God, I've never thought of that. That true wealth, let's think about it this way. I was on a podcast with somebody just earlier today. Think about wealth, WEALTH, as wealth, WELLTH. That is what true wealth is wellness.
Yep, it
And
is.
what does wellness look like integrated into your life? And it doesn't mean fitness.
It's the whole
And
person.
so
It's holistic.
it is. It's
Right.
100% holistic. And so the
Mhm.
moment that you can change the mindset of somebody of, oh, I know I need to get to the gym. And no, don't. If that's not where you're at and that's where it does, then
Right.
don't enter there.
Let's start with getting a full night's
Allow
rest.
allow it to meet you where you are.
Right.
And that's where we come back to these habits and these abilities and these controllables of which you want to lean into. Is it that you live in a chaotic environment, a small apartment or a massive house that has clothes everywhere? It's dirty, it's not organized, your schedule's all over the place. So going to the gym just seems like a crazy thing. Well, going to the gym is not going to change anything else that's going on, which is creating a very sympathetic state in your body, and you're in chronic sympathetic overload, which is
Yes.
not going to, you're not going to get the results that you want anyways from going to the gym. So let's back up. And all of a sudden, when people go, oh, I can actually enter into this wellness space without feeling overwhelmed and like I have to change everything at once, and I can
Yeah,
just
just start with
iteratively do it
cleaning a junk drawer
completely.
as an
It
example.
start it could start there, or it could
Right.
start with it could start with waking up and having 5 minutes of meditation, or it could go and have the 3 times a day you go for a 5 minute walk outside. It could be that you go and you walk around barefoot in your backyard first thing in the morning and last thing at night. It could go from starting and having a consistent sleep time and a consistent wake time. It could be any of these things that we're talking about that is your starting point, something that you own, something that you take responsibility for, something that you step into that ultimately leads down this road of everything else. Because you exactly said it, Wendie, is you don't know what you don't know. And so if you've never felt this way or you've never had anything different, you're just operating. You're just, I guess this is how I'm supposed to feel. And
Right.
you don't
Right.
know the difference. You have nothing to compare it to. And
Right.
so the moment that you make a change, and whatever that entry point is into this wellness space can be completely transcended across these 8 controllables, all of which are have an impact on heart rate variability, which is why when you have this measuring stick, even though subjectively you may not be able to feel a difference yet, quantifiably you have a a, a, a confirmation that what you're doing is right. What you're doing is enhancing your lifestyle, is enhancing you. And that's why I just love this metric so much, and this framework that
Right.
allows it to be agnostic for anybody and meet every single person where they are. And
And optimizing
as
that consistency. But here's a quick question, Justin, because I'm going to stereotype a little bit, but I think the world that we live in is a world that's kind of like, just hand me the top 5 things I need to do. Give me the checklist and I'll do it. You know what I mean? So what do you say to that person that's like, no, I just want a blueprint, just give it to me, and they are overwhelmed with all the choices and the figure outables. What do you say to that person that might even become overwhelmed in that thought?
yeah, so there's a couple things that come to mind right away. One is if you're that person who is asking for that, even and kind of like the world never wants to change, right? Like the
Right.
world's gonna fight, it's gonna scrape, it's gonna claw, it's gonna say,
Even
I want to
while
be
even in pain,
exactly.
right?
I just want to stay right here. A simple question to ask is like, what got you here won't get you out of here.
Right.
And so we have to adjust. We have to adapt. And thus, if you've always been asking, what are the top 5 things I can do, or what are the top 3 things you can do, maybe you should be asking a different question.
That's good, Justin.
And
Yes.
so coming back to this of like, what question can you ask?
Yeah.
Or where should I start? Or what does this mean for me? And we always go back
Yeah.
to like everyone's favorite radio station, WIIFM. What's
What's in
in it for me? And so
right.
let's for the first time maybe in anybody's life, let's not use that as a selfish stereotype, but actually ask, no, what's in it for you? What's in it for me? By me doing this, what is it going to do for me? Because and I'll dive into one of the pillars here for a second, but the self-care for the longest time has been considered selfish. It's been considered something that
selfless.
is, I think, quite frankly, from if you look at what self-care is, it's actually one of the most selfish things you can do is to not engage in it.
You got it. Yep.
Because all of a sudden, if I'm sitting here and giving puzzle pieces of myself away to people, and you always say, oh, I have no time left or no energy left for me. Well, guess what? In 5 years, you're going to be giving yourself 60% of what you truly could be doing. God's given us a gift to be absolutely world class at something. Every single one of us.
Preach it, Justin.
Every single one of us has been given a gift to be absolutely world class at something.
Yeah.
And if we don't have that passion yet, it's just because we haven't found it. Mm-hmm. And so to continue to go down that path, to continue to go search for that thing that we're world class in, what we're meant to do, it requires capacity. And the only way we gain capacity is by quite frankly, putting us first. Elise and I sit in all the time, and we have this hierarchy of how we make decisions. God first, ourselves second, each other third, our business fourth.
Yeah.
And people would go, well, that's interesting. Like, why do you put yourself before your spouse? Because I can't look after her the way that I need to if I am at 50% of who I need to be. Right. I can't look after my family, my business, if I am not optimized the way I need to be. And so whenever we're building out our schedules, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
And so
let me put a little pin in that real quick, if that's okay, Justin, because even while you're taking care of yourself, which I'm totally, yes, on board with that, there can be a selfish way in which you handle that. So there is a way to take care of yourself that is looking out with your spouse on schedule, and you're not, you know what I mean? There's
there's a communication factor.
Communication. Thank you. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a communication factor that comes in without a doubt.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's going so far down the rabbit hole, but it's like, let's just talk about, do we even make time for that? Like you ask anybody, what do you do for you? They'll be like, well, I work out. Okay. That's not what I'm asking. The definition of self-care, by definition, is something you do for only you. Mm-hmm. And it's not taking your kids to soccer. It's not going on date night with your significant other. It's not pulling the kids on the tubes on the boat. It's what you do for only you. And it's oftentimes things that people say, I don't have time for. I can't do it because it's selfish. Whatever the stereotype is. Right. But the moment that you actually lean into that, the more you have to give. I'll give one story, and I always get goosebumps when I tell this story. I love it. So was working with this. He's a New York Times bestselling author. He's written 4. He's coming out with a 5th. I'm still working towards my first.
It's coming. It's coming.
Oh gosh. But we're working together, and he's just frustrated. Like he's got a deadline coming up. It's in about 8 weeks. He's like, Justin, I just can't write. And I was like,
writer's block, just stuff.
Kind of, but even beyond that, like he's not passionate about it anymore. It's like a job. It's like he's forcing it so hard that like he's not present at home. None of these things. And he sees this whole health and wellness thing just kind of completely spiraling out of control. And I said to him, I came back and I said, what's the difference between now and when you wrote your first 4? He goes, I don't know. I'm 10 years older. And I was like, no, like, let's get deeper into this. Like, what was happening in this area? He goes, I don't know. It just seemed to flow. Like everything flowed, like life was working, all of these things. And I said, what do you do for just yourself? He goes, I sit at the fire with my kids. I was like, no, what do you do with just yourself? Like for just yourself? Mm-hmm. And he goes back and forth. He's like, I don't know. Like, what do you mean? And I was like, if I were to say name, you can go do whatever you wanted today, what would that be? He's like, I'd go water ski. Like, I love water skiing. I said, awesome. When's the last time you water skied? It was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I was like, you live on a lake with a boat.
Go
It's
ski.
like, it's like, I was like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to find 2 days a week where you can get 60 minutes of water skiing in for the next 4 weeks. He's like, Justin, I just can't do that. I was like, I don't care if you can do this or not. You're going to do this, or I'm going to give you my money back, and you're going to go somewhere else. He goes, okay, fine. So we built it into his schedule. And first day he goes, I get a text. He's out on the boat, water skiing, sends me a picture. Really cool. 2 days later, I get another one. Video of him water skiing, really cool. The following week, and I get goosebumps. Following week, he calls me in tears. I'm tearing up.
Oh.
Calls me and he goes, Justin, I wrote my book. I was like, what do you mean?
Like finished it?
Yeah, he was done. He goes, Justin, I wrote my book. He goes, after that first water ski, he goes, I sat down that night in bed and something just clicked. And I don't know what it was. And then when I went out for the second water ski, I literally manifested and had everything like just start going. And I literally wrote it while I was water skiing in my mind. I saw the chapters. I know what they needed to be. I know what we needed to go in them. And he said between that, between Thursday and Tuesday, when I went again, the book's done. And I wrote the final chapter while I was skiing today. And like, it's incredible.
That's so
and
cool.
It's this neurological pathway that just gets opened up when you're completely able to now get into a flow state
And you're not
truly
striving. Yeah.
But also you're changing neurologically and chemically within your body the stress load that you're under and taking you into a parasympathetic state, not trying to force it,
Which
and
allows you to receive the download God has for you, right?
which allows you to receive every download necessary and also be able to get into a place where you have a larger capacity to do more.
Yeah.
We all, whenever people say like, what's success to you? To ask anybody. And it's being able to do what you want, when you want, with who you want. It's that level of freedom. Yeah. And once you've obtained certain levels of freedom, once you've obtained certain understanding, it's okay, now I want more of this. I want more, I want more, I want more. And if the goal is to do more, be more, impact more, what's required? A bigger bag.
Healthier.
A bigger bag. And the only way we get a bigger bag is to increase our own capacity.
Right. Right.
And that's what it's all about, is making sure that we have the capacity to handle what we're leaning into, what we're striving for, what we're going for in a very personalized and intentional way.
That's so good. Especially, we have to be intentional. And I think that that's the big key word there is intentionality, because if you're not intentional, it doesn't it doesn't happen. If you don't put yourself on the calendar, then you just, the day is going to own you. Right.
So I actually tweeted about this morning. I'm going to read my tweet.
Seriously? I didn't even go on Twitter. Okay, let's go.
It literally goes, how to form a new habit. First an intention, then an action, then that awkward routine phase becomes rhythmic. Then the habit begins to form. It becomes an instinct and finally becomes who you are. But don't forget that it all started with an intention.
Ah, that's so good. Yes.
And so often we're just like, I want to establish a new habit. Okay, great. Yeah. What's the intentionality behind it?
Right.
And if we don't have an intention, if it's not truly rooted in that space, it's gonna be for naught every time.
Yeah. I have my clients state their intentions every week, and it's so important because the ones that state it come Friday, they're usually the ones that hit that goal. You know what I mean? Because if you don't, if it's all pie in the sky, fluffy stuff, it doesn't happen. I'm like, give me specifics. Like, they'll say one thing, but I'm like, okay, give me a time, a day. The more specific you are too with that intention is a big deal. So, Justin, you're just amazing. I could talk to you for hours, and I have over the course of months. But for the sake of this podcast, I may just have to have you on again. And I know we're going to have you and Elise on your biggest breakthrough soon. So I'm excited about that. But what is one word? I know probably everyone kind of does these on podcasts, but it's always good. Like, what's one word that would sum up, or a phrase that would sum up the entirety of who Justin is?
Different.
Different. That's for sure. And it's good different. Yeah,
It's
different isn't bad.
it's a word that forever I was afraid of it for so long.
Mm,
Being different, I just wanted to be blended in. I just wanted to be seen,
mm.
and it felt like I was left out or bullied or segregated because I was different. Um,
Did you
and the mo
feel
Go ahead.
rejected? Did you feel rejected?
Yeah,
Yeah,
rejected's a good word too.
yeah.
And I just wanted to fit in with the group and belong.
Mm,
And forever, it just felt like there was this, and different was a word I was scared of. And so the reason that I say that is because, and the reason it means something is that different is actually what creates success. That's what creates this level of true self-realization, because every one of us is different, and when we can lean into
yeah.
that, we can live differently, and when we live differently, we get different results. And um, for me, this is just my personal mantra: is I wasn't born to be average,
That's right.
and it requires me doing things differently than anybody else, because it's going to get me to find different results and exactly where I was meant to be.
So good. Different. Yes. I think after everything you've said today, I'm like, I love that. That's so good. Yes, right on. But yes, we are all different, Justin, and different is good. I mean, if you look at your finger, we all have different fingerprints, right? God has designed us all different, and different is good. And different all coming together is beautiful. So I love who you and Elise are, and God bless you on what you're doing with Own It. And if people want to know more about Own It, where can they go to find more about Justin and what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So they can go to ownitcoaching.com.
Okay.
Everything exists there. And then very active on both Twitter and Instagram at Justin Roth.
Just Roth, not the
No,
Roethlingshoefer.
no, we just left it, made
Thank
it
you.
easy for
Thank you for
everybody.
that.
Justin Roth, Roeth.
Oh, and you will be inspired because you'll see his feats of strength and his just all the wonderful things that you do athletically, and it's very fun to watch. Just you own it. Just you own you're different, and just own that you are wired for more. So thank you for being an inspiration and an encouragement for all of us. So thanks for being on Visibly Fit.
Thank you so much, Wendie.
All right. God bless. Well, I sure hope you enjoyed that interview with Justin. So much fun. Seriously, I could have just sat and talked for hours and hours. But man, it just goes to show you, you never know what someone's been through, right? All that he went through as a child. And I'm so grateful that he got his health in check, because he might not be here today to talk about it. But also the fact that he was just obsessive and compulsive about learning about data, and he just geeked out about it. Well, it not only helped him understand his health and get his health in a healthy place, but also he's able to help so many people because of him understanding the science behind it all. So if you are interested to learn more, go to ownitcoaching.com and find out if that's good fit for you. And those of you that are interested in the Visibly Fit 7-week program, I want to invite you to go to getvisiblyfit.com today. If you are even on the fence, if you're just a little bit curious, I invite you to go there today, getvisiblyfit.com. Seriously, I just had a client that she's been on my list since 2013. I kid you not. And she just recently signed up for the 7-week program. And after just 3 weeks, she's released a lot of weight. I'm serious. I'm not going to tell you how many, but a lot of pounds, LBs already in just 3 weeks. And she's off medication. So she's like, I can't believe I didn't do this sooner. So if you are questioning or just want to have a dialogue with me, I'm cool with that too. Reach out. But now is your time. This is your year to get healthy. So find your coach, find your space, whatever works for you. But it's time for you to step up and take your health seriously. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in to Visibly Fit. We'll catch you next time. Be blessed. Well, that's a wrap for today's show. So thank you so much for tuning in. I love spending this time with you. To learn more and get more free resources, just head on over to wendiepett.com. And thank you in advance for sharing this episode and this podcast, following and subscribing not only to this podcast, but finding me on social media, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you are, I'm probably there too. Until next week and our next podcast time together, make it a visibly fit day.